Hi guys, how you going? Campbell here from Autodidactic Channel. Hope you're having a joyous day. And today I wanted to take a look at Melbourne and more specifically at the architects or architect who designed apparently a lot of the buildings in Melbourne. And you'll see here, this is one of the buildings he designed back in the 1804 or 18. This picture was 1872. I believe the building was built in the 1840s. When it was built, it was called the Independent Church. And just look at this photo, 1870. Just look at what's around, apart from the fact that there's no roads. We've got this massive statue. We've got street lights and just buildings all up the street here, but nothing else. So let's get in and have a look at the architect of Melbourne. Alright, so this is Joseph Reed, architect, 1823 to 1890, a Cornish man by birth, was one of the most talented, prolific and influential Victorian-era architects in Melbourne, Australia. He established his practice in 1853, which through various partnerships and name changes continues today as Bates Smart, one of the oldest firms continually operating in Australia. This is Joseph. Now, this is all we get on his background. Born in 1822 in Cornwall, England. That's it. Joseph Reed's early career may have included some local training, as he is known to have worked in the offices of some noted architects in London. And that's all we get. Then he decided to start a new career at the age of 30 in Australia, arriving in Melbourne in 1853, and very soon made a name for himself. The next year he won the design competition for the State Library of Victoria, the Geelong Town Hall in 1855, and designed the Bank of New South Wales in Collins Street in 1856. In 1862 he partnered with Frederick Barnes. Okay, so he's just turned up. He's got no training, no formal training that we know about. They don't even know who his parents are or where he came from. Like, there's nothing. That's it. And then he turns up, and within a year of arriving in Australia, he's designed the State Library and won a competition for it. And then the Geelong Town Hall. Massive buildings. Now, I did find there's not a lot on this guy. I found this, and it's just the same story. All they say here that's a bit more is the architect was probably the child baptised in the parish of Constantine, Cornwall, England, 23rd Feb 1823, son of Nicholas Reed, a landowner, and his wife Amy Nee Nitchin. So, I mean, that's all we get. Then it says, he arrived in Melbourne. Now, what is amazing about this man, apart from the fact that he just turned up out of nowhere, was suddenly the best architect in Melbourne and had no training, look at what he designed. Now there's over 30 buildings here, and this is from 1854 to 1889. We've got 35 years here. And these are the kind of buildings. Look, State Library of Victoria. These are huge buildings, guys. All of them are old world buildings. And look at the different styles. He's doing cathedrals. He's doing houses, like townhouses. He's doing, I don't know what that architecture style is called, but that style. More houses, more churches. Just all these different styles. Greco-Roman, and, the Melbourne Town Hall. That thing is huge. All these different styles of churches, and he even did the Royal Exhibition building, of course, right? But I'll leave the link to this page so you can have a look and go through and check out. So I'll leave this link just so you can have a look at this list and go through it and check out all these buildings, because it's really quite ridiculous. I mean, these are all you know, these old world buildings, every one of them. So I thought that we'd just take, I mean, we can't look at all of them obviously, we'll just take a look at a few of them. Now he did design the Melbourne Town Hall, and this is a picture of it in the, well, you can see this would be early 1900s. We've got a tram here, people are still on horseback. And again, with this picture, you can see that the whole street is built out with these massive buildings. Now, where did they all come from? And this is the town hall today, and as you can see, it's a huge building. Absolutely massive. I mean, look at the work, you know, look at the big tower, and, you know, completely covered, like every pillar. You know, all the facade, all the decor. Just completely done. And look what I found up the top of this tower. What is this? So we've obviously got the spire here. They've turned it into a flagpole. But look at this. It's like a radial antenna. And there's a bit more wiring going over here. And it looks like it all just goes down this tower. But, I mean, yeah, this place, look, I mean, it's just ridiculous. How did they build this? Where did all the craftsmen come from? Where did all the material come from? You know, same old, same old. And that's the town hall. So that was built in 1869. Now, in Melbourne, the population, as you can see here, in 1851, the population, 23,000 people lived in Melbourne. 23,000. Now, they say that that rose dramatically after the gold rush. But he was building these buildings 1854. So before the gold rush, when there's like 30,000 people in Melbourne, he's building these ridiculous massive buildings for no one. And where did the money come from? And then it says down here, Victoria's population reached 400,000. So 500,000, they're saying, in 1860 because of the gold rush. So by then, you know, 500,000, you could say, yeah, you know, maybe you could be building some of these buildings, but 30 of them in 30, I mean, come on. But anyway, let's have a look at some of these buildings that he has built. This is Melbourne Town Hall again, built in 1869. Look at the size of this guy. So you can see this is a massive building. Just huge. This is it back in, not sure of the date, but trams. Doesn't look like this guy, a horse and buggy there. So we're looking around the turn of the century. And this is the building. But again, look, just everywhere. There's just these buildings everywhere that are not mentioned. It just says he built the town hall. Who built all these other ones? Or who designed? Who was the architect for them all? This is one of the, like it's a ceiling in the town hall. And it just reminded me a lot of, you know, the windows we get in cathedrals that look like cymatics and those kind of shapes. Found that interesting. And this is the hall, of course. And look at this organ. This thing is massive. And this was all built, you know, as part of it. And the construction date for Town Hall is 20 years, so that's actually something that is believable, but why would they build something like this? Look, I mean, look at the size of this thing. This is a new city just starting out, a new colony, less than 100 years old, and they're building this. Now, have a look at this organ as well. Let's have a look at there, because I found this other photo. Here, this is the same organ. This is what they're telling me is Melbourne Town Hall as well. It must just be a different angle because it doesn't quite look the same to me. See how this looks? The arch, maybe the lens, but the roof, the arch on the roof does not look the same. See how this looks a lot higher, but this here says Melbourne Town Hall interior. This is government website. But anyway, and this has got on the side here, we've got these upper levels. which are different on this. So I don't know what's going on here. I mean, these look like different places. This organ as well. Look at it. Look at the top. What we've got up here. And you know, just notice all the spires coming off everything. But look at this compared to, you know, like they're not on there. And this is a wooden facade. This doesn't really look wooden, does it? So what's going on here? Like, this looks like it's a fully sort of polished metal, you know, amazing, you know, machine. You know, look at these bits here. Right? It just doesn't... This looks like a cheap imitation. This wooden sort of... It just doesn't look the same, does it? It just doesn't look like the same place. This is marked as Melbourne Town Hall though, so I don't know what to tell you here, but, you know, was this a different place, or have they just... I don't know. But anyway, let's leave it at that. So they're both marked Melbourne Town Hall interior organ, but clearly different, completely different organs. And they look like they're different places. So, you know, we see this a lot. Also with all these buildings that they tell us they move. All these massive brick structures. You know, apart from the question, why would you do that? It just makes so much more work. It just doesn't make sense at all. And I think, you know, maybe this is part of it. Maybe we just had multiple buildings all the same because they were some kind of machines. And now we're just told, oh, no, that one was moved. You know, because they uncovered a better condition one or something. I don't know, but there's something weird going on. I mean, we all know that. Okay, so Joseph Reed. So he's designed all these buildings. Another one he had was St. Michael's, which I showed you at the start. It's now St. Michael's. And again, look at this picture. Horse and cart. No roads, you know, no paved roads, massive brick buildings all up the street, and this huge, because look at the size of, this is the horse. I mean, look at the size of that lamppost. But imagine what it would be next to this statue. This is huge, and it's just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. It looks like it's got grass growing around it. Very strange. This is the interior. And this was, as we've told, this was built as a church, but this not looking like a traditional church or cathedral, is it? It looks a lot more like a theatre than a church. And this is a picture of it today. You can see there's a few more buildings around it now. And again, just look at the brickwork. Like the amount of effort and knowledge that goes into putting these patterns in the bricks, and they're everywhere. Look at these lintels, brick lintels. Now these lintels, they all have to, each of these bricks has to be cut at an angle. Okay, they're smaller on the inside than they are on the outside. That's how they fit, and they make this lintel so they don't fall in. That's a lot of work and a lot of maths and trigonometry and all types of stuff just to do this. You know, in a new colony, why wouldn't you just use a piece of wood for a lintel? It doesn't make sense. I mean, look at this place. It's just absolutely... Look at this work. I mean, it's just everywhere. I mean, off the ground as well. So I'm not sure what's under here. You can't really see. So yeah, look at, I mean... So this was designed by a guy who was never trained as an architect. No real experience. In, you know, a new colony. Melbourne as a town was literally, you know, 10 years old or something. Definitely less than 20 years old when he rocked in and designed all these buildings and they started building them. So the question is, do you believe that story? And And of course, our famous architect, Mr. Reid, apart from designing the rest of Melbourne, he designed the exhibition hall. So I've got a few photos. We'll have a look here. This is an interior drawing. Obviously, you can see the size straight away and just the usual features, you know. All the usual suspects are there. This is an actual photo, the French court. And so this is pretty much what these World's Fairs were. They were just all these, you know, exhibition stalls of people showing stuff from around the world. So, I mean, what was it? They were showing what they had found, what they had reclaimed, what they had inherited when they came into this land, and they're just showing everyone their wares. Look what we found. Here's another one, the engineering, agricultural, commerce, all these different centres. It's just like the one we saw at the start, but a bit of a better picture. This is the actual size of the building. See how big the people are. Tiny. I mean, look at this thing. And again, this one, I think only lasted 3 years. I'll check on that. But you can see the immense size of it. Domes everywhere. Just ridiculous for you know, it's the same story. They tell us it was built just for the fair and then it was going to be torn down. Just ridiculous. And here's an actual photo of the exhibition hall. And look at the size of it. I mean, seriously, look at this archway. It's 3 stories high. Well, 3 of these stories, which are pretty big stories. Massive domes. I mean, this is ridiculous. Is it not? Another one of the interior, just to show like the grandeur of it. This one's obviously a drawing. Look at all the people they've drawn in there. I don't think it ever got this full somehow. But I mean, just look, every single surface is covered in artwork. I mean, come on. Oh, it's a bit of a small picture, this one. But there you go, that's what the building used to look like. And again, not much around it, just sort of out on its own. And as you can see from this last picture too, this picture, not looking brand new really, is it? I mean, does that look like a brand new building to you? I know it's not the best photo, but I don't know. And this is the Melbourne International Exhibition underneath the dome. 1880. So look at the size of this dome. I mean, look at the people. I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's just silly. Look at the size of these people. And look at the size of this dome. I mean, I understand grandeur, but this is ridiculous. I mean, and how are they getting up that high to build this dome? They didn't have any machinery, really. Didn't have motors. They might have had some steam-driven things, a few hoists and pulleys, but they didn't have cranes and things like that. And this is another one to show you. This shows, you know, obviously the gardens as well, but you see, it's not just this massive building at the front. Look at how big all the pavilion section is. All designed by this guy, Joseph Reid. And you can see there's nothing around it. It's just in the middle of nowhere. I think it's just been discovered. So if we come back here, Royal Exhibition Building, 1879. And it's the same old story, guys. We all know about these World's Fairs. Basically, you know, the parasites showing off everything that they have claimed as their own in buildings that they claimed as their own and then knocked over. So this whole place, the Royal Exhibition, all that stuff we just saw, 1 year to build. 1879 to 1880. 1 year. Everything. 1 year. Do you believe that?
Of course, no, don't be ridiculous.
Sits on 64 acres. Okay, so it says Royal Exhibition Building designed by architect Joseph Reed of blah blah blah, who designed everything else in Victoria. The Royal Exhibition Building was the largest design completed by Reed and Barnes. According to Reed, the eclectic design was inspired by many sources composed of brick, timber, steel and slate. I mean, so this is I don't know what to tell you, it's a very intricate design. Now, again, we're told that this was just built for the World Fair, but it's still standing. There it is today. It's still there. So, this story we get about, most of the American ones are, World Fairs, they only built to last 3 years or whatever, then they knock them all over. But even when you look at those World's Fairs, there's some buildings that are still there over 100 years later, and we're told that they were just whacked up in a few years as basically as facades, but they seem to be outlasting every other construction that we can do. So there you go, guys. Just like this, this is what goes on. Just complete lies. Joseph Reed, some guy, they don't know who his parents are. They, maybe came from Cornwall. No training. Maybe he worked in some offices in London, and then suddenly he's like the prize architect. He's designed 30 plus buildings in 35 years, and we're talking the biggest, most prominent sort of buildings in Melbourne, all huge Tartarian style buildings, and he really doesn't exist. How is this possible? This is what they do. They give us a story that everything was done by this guy, but this guy doesn't exist when you look into it. So the story is that they found all this and they made stories up to cover their lies. And this is what we see today, guys, that nothing's changed. Same people are in control and they are still stealing everything they can and making up lies to try and hide their tracks. And this also has got a lot to do with language and the way that they speak. This is why the media is so dangerous, and television, because it gets into your subconscious mind. And they sit there and they program us. And we know this is happening, and it's happening at the moment. So it's time for all this to stop and for the truth to come out, because this is completely, obviously, just a blatant, made up. This is just silly. That's just the silliest story. And you look for this guy, and I've been on to, the Victorian Historical Society. I've been onto all the Victorian government websites, and you can't find anything on this guy. Anything. No designs either, nothing. I found one drawing. That was it. And this is the stuff that we get told is our story. But it's not, as we know, it's all his story. Alright guys, thanks for spending some time with me. Hope you enjoyed that one. Have a joyous day, and I shall catch you on the next upload. Bye for now.